You know, the NBA used to be something that I used to get jazzed up all the time for. When you're out there watching the NBA on NBC, the music just went through your body. The NBA on ESPN in the 90s and 2000s, the Kobe Bryant era, the era before that with Jordan, in which I grew up with, watching the Knicks and Pacers go back and forth. I'm an old head. I liked the NBA back then. I can't stand today's NBA analysts who said they play versus plumbers. Guys like J.J. Redick, who never did shit in the NBA other than shoot beyond the arc, and his career only was extended by the lack of being able to hand check in his day, and that's never brought up. And as far as Tim Legler, the same type of deal, a journeyman, if anything, a roster filler at the end of a 12-man roster, sitting on the very bench of the roster, gets to call out the most experienced, the best NBA players of all time. Kendrick Perkins, players like that get jobs and talk shit about the real players in the NBA. And it's hard to even call today's players real players, if you get my drift. LeBron James, a lot of people say, oh, the way he was built, he would have dominated in the 80s and 90s. Bullshit. Did you not see how everyone else was built back then? I hate the whole thing of they're playing plumbers and firefighters. No, they weren't. Those were elite athletes of the day. Maybe if you want to go back into the 70s and 60s and 50s and beyond, you have an argument. But these are athletes that gave it their all. You had enforcers back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Their sole job was like a hockey enforcer, where if you fuck with our star, we're fucking with your star, and so on and so on. We don't care if he gets a technical foul, 6 fouls in a game. It doesn't matter. His only role is just to be an asshole. You don't have that no more. The NBA is soft. LeBron James, King James, with his 3 titles. That 4th one doesn't count at me, dude. That dude is a fraud. And all he does is his reign, if you think about it, from the NBA. You have 2 people that have ruined the NBA. This penis head behind me on the TV screen, Adam Silver, since he took over for a commissioner who, David Stern, I thought, because of what he did to my Sonics back in the day, was just the worst commissioner, with Clay Bennett moving the team to Oklahoma. Stupidest shit ever, right? Now, my thing was I hated David Stern at the time. I would love for David Stern still to be alive and running the league now. Because if you think about what David Stern did, although he had some issues and he pissed me off as far as moving the Sonics, the NBA was healthy when he was in charge. When this piece of shit took over, I keep pointing the wrong way, when he took over, the league has gone nothing but down. And a lot of people say, oh, cord cutting's the problem. Oh, this, and that. Well, no. Why is the NFL still ranking in ratings all over America? People say, well, worldwide, the NBA has a bigger following on Twitter and social media. It's like 3 times as big as NFL. Okay, NBA resonates in other countries, but the ratings don't say it here. The ratings are at record lows. Every year, the finals ratings go down. And then the media tries to spin it like, oh, the NBA, if you've seen, it went up 20%, from last year. 20%, you're talking about it went from, 8.5 million people to 9.5 million. It went up 1 million people. And that's being generous. You're talking about a league that used to average 16 to 17. And again, you say cord cutting. No, not really. Because how the fuck do you explain the NBA still raking in 40 share, 36 million people or whatever? The numbers always fluctuate for the NFL, playoff time, regular season. And you could say, oh, well, Todd, it's 82 game season. That's a long time. But regular season in the NFL, oh, it's so important because it's week to week. You have 1 week off and you have to play. The NFL has gotten so greedy now. It's gone to Peacock. It's gone to other streaming platforms, Google, you name it, or Amazon, whoever's buying them. They freaking have forced the consumer to pay for the product. And you know what? They're paying for the product because the product is worth it. Say what you want to say. You have your NFL doubters out there saying it's scripted, but people are still going to play because it's dramatic, it's football, it's fun, it's a sport that hasn't deviated too much. It has with those stupid-ass cushion helmets, but it hasn't deviated too much from what it was. The NBA has deviated a lot. The LeBron era, the Adam Silver era has fucked things up. The NBA is trash. You cannot play defense anymore. The very thing that we used to complain about as fans, the only complaint we used to complain about as fans of the NBA was that the All-Star game, they never played defense. Other than that year that Kobe and the rest of the league, Vince Carter and all those greats wanted to win the All-Star game for the West or the East, and they put up with Allen Iverson, one of the best All-Star games, and forgive me that I can't name the year, that I've ever seen. Outside of that, the NBA All-Star game after the 90s was mostly trash, no defense. And it got progressively worse every year. And it got to a point where it's like, okay, in a regular season, you're seeing 89 to 78 finals, right, in games, regular season. However, in the All-Star game, it was like 133 to 121. And people would laugh at that and be like, well, that's because they don't play no defense. And that was a narrative, and everybody understood. And again, would you ever see Kobe Bryant flop? Would you see him complain to the refs? Absolutely. But in an anger way, for a way that he got screwed. He wasn't just bitching to bitch. All these players bitch. It's annoying as fuck. It's a terrible game now. No defense, no respect for the fans, and the fans are going to not respect them right back. So people say, oh, fans shouldn't be saying that shit. They said worse before the social media era. The only thing is the NBA players knew that was part of the job. Now they just bitch and moan and get them kicked out. And the fans want to test it for their viral takes on social media, so they push the envelope. So it's a two-way street. Two wrongs don't make a right. But the NBA has gone just terrible. And let me just read you the scores from Friday, January 26th. Mavericks 148. Hawks 143. That's not double overtime. Hell, I watched a triple overtime game back in the day, only get to 120 to 121. This is regular season. This is an entire 4 quarters, 148 to 143. Nearly 300 points scored. Luka Doncic scored 73 points. Remember back in the day, all you heard was the fact that Jordan scored 62 in a game or 63 in a game against Boston. You know that Kobe Bryant went off for 80 in a game. That was milestones. That was a regular season against Toronto and Jalen Rose. And he was posterized. Jalen Rose, after his career, that's all he talked about was you were guarding Kobe on that night where he scored 80. Well, it's like that meant something. Today, we're forgetting the fact that Luka Doncic scored 73 because it doesn't mean anything anymore. The value in scoring doesn't mean anything anymore. And then you got pompous assholes like KD coming out saying, I'm the greatest of all time. Based on what? Joining other teams as worse as LeBron? Super teams and scoring points against no defense? And you want to say, oh, these players back in the day, Karl Malone, say what you want about him, Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, Akeem Olajuwon, they only put up stats because they were playing plumbers. And okay, even if that were the case, they were playing plumbers who had wrenches in their hands or arms because they were so strong and they were able to put bodies on people. You can't touch anybody anymore. The NBA doesn't allow you to do that. It's a free reign. I mean, you play more physical pickup games at the park or the rec center or in, one of these famous, places in Santa Monica or Venice, New York, Brooklyn, than you would in the NBA at times. And I used to ball all the time. Look at this one. Rockets, one of the worst teams in the NBA. 138-104 over the Hornets. Pacers, 133. Suns, 61. Devon Booker, great players, scores. Look, the NBA players like Steph Curry, he would be like his father, 20, 21 points on a good night. Because you couldn't get away with the threes and the screens that he got. It's just at me at that, dude. Prove me wrong. There's no way. Booker is a nice player and everything and could score, but these guys aren't touched. Shooters can be shooters. You know that as well as I know. You get to a rec center, you let a guy that has a good shot. You don't put a hand in his face. You don't check him defensively. He'll shoot out there and hit every three. He will. You watch. Even a female can do that. If they're good enough and can shoot and they've got the same stance every time, you're not screwing with the way they shoot, you're not putting any defense on them, people can sink shot after shot, 9 out of 10. I've seen it many times. You don't think a guy who does nothing but play basketball, shoot, and all this other stuff isn't going to hit 3 after 3 with all the fans around him and no hands in his face? That's what's happening. Devon Booker in that game against the Pacers scores 62, Michael Jordan night. Guess what? They lose because no one else plays defense. So you could score 62 and on the same night, someone score 11 more points than you, 73. And that team barely wins by 5. It's arena football, but arena basketball. Even though they always played in arenas, it's turned into just who gives a shit about defense. Clippers 127, Raptors 107, Grizzlies 107, Magic 106, Cavaliers 112, Bucks 100, Thunder 107. What the hell happened to the Pelicans? They only scored 83. Wow, they suck. Spurs beat the Trailblazers 116-100. Further proof that the NBA sucks. Further proof that Adam Silver's ruined the game. I mean, what more do you have to look at than the fact that you have 30 teams in the NBA? I believe it's 30 teams. Yeah, it's 30 teams. 30 teams in the NBA. 20 of them will make the playoffs. I've made a video on another channel about the NFL adding a 7th playoff team. I don't like it. I don't like it. Out of any sport, the sport that should have added more teams, and fortunately I think they finally are, they're getting over their stubbornness, and the bowl games is college football. They're finally adding more teams. They should have at least 10 or 8 teams in. That's been always a great debate. But with that being said, I thought the perfect number of teams, because it's been that way for so long, was 8. And Commissioner Penis Head over here, keep pointing the wrong way. I'm thrown off because it's different on my screen. He decides, well, 8's not enough. 16, a little more than half of the league. That's not enough. We need to have a play-in. We need to have two more teams fight it out in the 9th and 10th spot to make it so that they can fill the rest of the void. So in a league where it basically doesn't, and what does that do? I mean, the in-season game, the in-season tournament is another stupidity that this league created. I mean, you can't even explain how they got the random pools together and they set things up for easy opponents. I mean, you had a win percentage of, I think it was 37% of the, in the regular season in which the Lakers were facing. They win the tournament and then promptly go like 3-9 right away after winning the in-season tournament. Champagnes and a banner. That's embarrassing for the Lakers. I doubt the Celtics would do that. I doubt even the Knicks, as bad a franchise as they are, would hang a fucking banner for an in-season tournament. Now, getting back to the postseason real quick and my final thoughts on this. You're going to have 4 teams, 7 through 10, play it out again. And lo and behold, guess who's number 9 in the West? The Lakers. Who, if they didn't have those extra playoff spots, would not make the postseason and wouldn't have made the last 2 years in the postseason. Golden State is your number 12 in the West. Golden State, for all that talk about how great they were, nobody's talking about how shit they are this year. It's always a focus on the Lakers. But the regular season doesn't matter anymore. It's the haves and have-nots. It used to be a thing back in the day when we would see a under 500 or not an under 500 team, but a 500 team make the 8th spot. We'd laugh and be like, well, they're going to get punked right away. They're done. Well, that team can rise to the top and beat a number 1 who played their ass off during the regular season or at least scored more than everybody. The regular season doesn't matter anymore. If Commissioner Penis Head has to make these rules for these guys who he set up to have these nights off and he set up to baby and pamper, has to give them incentives and more money to play more games, your Kawhi Leonards of the world and others who just abuse the system. I mean, it used to be a thing where you used to make fun of guys who would not practice or go to or playing games back to back. You know, when you were injury prone, you were labeled as weak. Now it's like praised. As long as you're ready for the playoffs, we want fresh players. What happens last year with the Clippers? Rested Kawhi and George, only for them to both get hurt in the postseason. The NBA used to be fantastic. Used to be for the fans. It's not anymore. It's for the spoiled-ass players. It's for the people that make money off of them, for the sponsors and everybody else. The NBA sold its soul a long time ago to this piece of shit behind me on the screen. And he's just further flushed it down the toilet. We used to have teams that were, I think it was the Dallas Mavericks, who were god-awful, you know, prior to Nowitzki era and all that other stuff, and the Jason Kidd era. And I think they won like 7 or 8 games, or they were something like the most historic bad team. You got 2 teams. You got Washington sitting here 7-37, Charlotte 10-33, Detroit 5-39. Detroit lost 23 games in a row before they finally won one. You're going to have teams make it, several teams make it at 500 or worse on both sides of, I mean, you got the Atlanta Hawks, 9 games under 500, sitting at 10. The Bulls, 4 games under. Orlando, barely a game over. The league is a joke. The regular season doesn't matter. Nobody plays defense. The ratings are terrible. Literally the only thing that I watch every now and then, which I used to watch it on the nightly when it came on, was the NBA on TNT with your guys Shaq and Charles Barkley, Kenny the Jet Smith, and the white guy. And I can't stand Kenny the Jet Smith, too, because him and his walking off the damn podium, everything going political. I tell you, man, life happens. Wars go on. People die. People can't afford the rent. People can't afford a meal. Life has always happened. People unjustly get punished or screwed over. It's a part of life, no matter what race, creed, or color you are. Death, taxes, it just goes on. It goes on. But we in sports don't need to be preached to, and we don't need sports to be the news, the world news. I don't need to learn how to live my life, or I don't need to learn what happened in this country or what happens here, whatever happens here. I understand the NBA and the NFL and Major League Baseball has always put it out there for veterans, and that's always been a good thing. They've always said, hey, there's a tsunami, donate to this cause, donate blood here. I get that. That kind of stuff I can, most universal people can deal with a little 30-second promo of that. Or, hey, there's a famine, or there's a big earthquake in this city or something, donate here. Fine, perfect. If you're telling me who to vote for, if you're telling me, what should happen with sexuality and stuff like that, get the fuck out of here. That stuff should never take place in sports. Because, see, when there's a natural disaster, when there's something big like that, that affects everybody, no matter what race, religion, creed, what you believe in, what you see, how your values are. Those are natural disasters that everybody can jump on and say, hey, we need to donate here. Katrina happened. Yes, that is big. But all that other stuff is nonsense. All that other stuff is supposed to take us away. We're supposed to watch sports as entertainment. That's what it is. It's entertainment. It's not supposed to push your social justice warrior bullshit or anything else. It's supposed to just sit back and you're supposed to enjoy yourself. This is what we're paying for. We're paying for those packages, or if you steal it off of, the Fire Stick or whatever streaming service you use, you still got to pay something. whether it's the internet or watching TV, going to a bar, going to a game. That shit's not it's not cheap for the normal consumer. So my point is this: the NBA has the most to lose, and they've done a really good job of losing ratings, losing fans, losing respectability, credibility, and the right to function as a normal sport that we all grew up loving, playing, and enjoying.
Welcome to the Unfiltered Sports Network, where we believe in keeping it real and telling it like it is. No more are the days of sugarcoating or ESPN-style politically correct takes. No. This is the place where real sports fans gather to talk about the stuff that truly matters. From the latest headlines, transactions, to controversial news, we've got you covered. Join us as we dive into the unfiltered world of sports, where passion meets authenticity. Hit that like and subscribe button for more raw, honest, and uncensored discussions that will leave you craving for more. This is the Unfiltered Sports Network, where real sports fans talk about real shit.